Now we'll look at how to multiply and divide fractions. Our first step is the same as we saw with adding and subtracting fractions. If we have any mixed numbers, we need to convert them to improper fractions first. With multiplying and dividing fractions, we do not need to worry about having a common denominator. For multiplying fractions, we'll just multiply the numerators together and then multiply the denominators together. Our final answers should be reported as either a proper fraction or a mixed number. Looking at our first example, we don't have any mixed numbers to worry about, so I can just multiply the numerators together. 2 times 3 is 6, and then I multiply the denominators together. 3 times 4 is 12. My final step is to reduce that to a fraction in lowest terms, 1/2. Remember, if you need practice converting between improper fractions and mixed numbers, you can see the previous video on that. In the next example, we have 2 5/8 times 1/2. Notice this dot symbol is another way to tell us to multiply. My first step is to convert my mixed number to an improper fraction. So I have 21/8 times 1/2. Now I can just multiply the numerators together. 21 times 1 is 21, and multiply the denominators together. 8 times 2 is 16. I'll convert this improper fraction to a mixed number, and my final answer is 1 5/16. In our final example here, we have a fraction 3/8 multiplied by a whole number. To keep everything lined up, remember that any whole number can be written as a fraction over 1. So 2 is my numerator and 1 is in my denominator. From here, I can follow the same rules. Multiply the numerators together. 3 times 2 is 6, over, multiplying the denominators together, 8 times 1 is 8. I'll reduce this to lowest terms, and my final answer is 3/4. The steps for dividing fractions are quite similar, except we have to flip or invert the second fraction, and then we can follow those same steps of multiplying the numerators together and multiplying the denominators together. Here are some examples. In my first question, I want to do 1/5 divided by 3/4. I rewrite this, keeping the first fraction the same, change the operation to multiply, and flip or invert the second fraction. So 3/4 becomes 4/3. From here, I solve just as I did with the multiplication. I multiply the numerators together, and then I multiply the denominators together. So my final answer here is 4/15. In the next example, we need to convert our mixed number to an improper fraction first. So 7/4. And then we can look at doing the same steps. I'll change my divide to a multiply and flip this 2, or 2/1, to the fraction 1/2. Now that I've changed this into a multiplication question, I can simply multiply the numerators together and multiply the denominators together. I check and make sure my final answer is reduced to lowest terms, and then that question is finished. In our final example, we again have a mixed number, so I'll convert that to an improper fraction first. 2 2/3 is the same as 8/3. I'm going to change my division to a multiplication question, and when I do that, I have to flip or invert the second fraction, so 1/2 becomes 2/1. Now I can do my multiplication. 8 times 2 is 16, over 3 times 1 is 3. The last step is to convert this improper fraction into a mixed number. When you do that, you get 5 1/3. So multiplication and division of fractions are quite similar. We no longer need to have a common denominator, but do make sure you practice the difference between them, making sure that when you're dividing fractions, you invert or flip over that second fraction to turn your question into a multiplication.